the New York Times, citing classified assessments suggesting that Iran retains substantial missile capabilities. This squares with other CNN reporting, but not with what the administration is saying publicly.
Last June, Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated their nuclear program to rubble.
We've degraded just about everything. They have very few missiles.
Their nuclear program, such as it is, the enrichment facilities that they had before, they've been destroyed.
Their military is gone. Their missiles are largely depleted.
We've knocked out their missile production. Their missiles are mostly decimated. They have probably 18-19%, but not a lot.
U.S. intelligence has come to the conclusion that Iran, while having substantial missile capabilities damaged, they've regained a lot of those capabilities along the Strait of Hormuz, which of course directly contradicts what we're hearing from the White House. The assessment suggests Iran has rebuilt 30 of the 33 missile sites along the strait. How big of a setback might this be for the U.S.?
I think it's a significant setback, Jake. I'm deeply surprised at this finding, if it's accurate. Obviously, this is all highly classified, but if accurate, good on the CIA for bringing bad news to the leadership. They need to hear it. I personally, watching the campaign, the shock and awe, having been through this many times in the Gulf Wars, was expecting kind of maybe 30% still capable, but to hear that they have 70% of their top-end weapon system still viable, accessible, worrisome in two principal ways. One, threatens the strait, which we need to get open. And number two, really worrisome, threatens the Gulf Arab states, their oil and gas infrastructure. So this is not welcome news at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Let's discuss with retired Army Major General James Spider Marks. He's now the head of geopolitical strategy for Academy Securities. General, thanks so much for being with us. So let's look at the Strait of Hormuz right now, obviously an area of intense focus. If this assessment by U.S. intelligence is correct, how has Iran been able to restore so much of its missile sites along the strait?
Well, I think a couple things, Boris. First of all, the report indicated access to the sites. So that gives you some type of, at least you should question, what does that really mean? You've got access. Do you have full operational capacity and capability? Do you have the stockpiles of munitions? Do you have the guidance capabilities, et cetera? So that becomes question number one. And question number two is, how redundant are these capabilities at those locations? Look, the Iranians have learned early on that in order to survive, you're going to have to dig very deeply and you're going to have to cover your activities. So I think through the process of targeting that Epic Fury has been able to go through, certainly that targeting package has gone after those sites, but we haven't been able to do an effective bomb damage assessment. You know, the effects-based operations that we're all about, which is to conduct an operation and then be able to pressure test what it looks like, what were the results. And I think that's what we're seeing right now, that the Iranians have indicated not only are they immensely politically resilient, but militarily resilient as well.
To your point, there has been evidence gathered of Iran recovering some of its missile launchers, and you see some of the dump trucks there, the front-end loader as well. So it seems like a lot of this is mobile, much of it hidden underground. The Times is reporting that Iran retains roughly 70% of its pre-war missile stockpile, including ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. Obviously, that means that as we look at the range that Iran is capable of reaching, there is still an enormous threat that it poses in the region.
Yeah, it does, and it will. We have to be very clear-eyed about what the effects are of this operation. As we've indicated, the Iranians have been able to resist the onslaught of Epic Fury, and let's be frank, that has been immensely well executed. But any nation that is relying on, its definition of sovereignty is all about its position opposite to its regional partners, wants to destroy Israel, doesn't want to be a member of the global community of nations, and wants to eliminate the great Satan, us. So this is a nation that has spent close to 5 decades digging deep, creating redundancy. And what we see now is a lack of command and control, that operational command and control. where these units that have the missiles, that have the drones, they've got the capability to operate within what's known as commander's intent, kind of a mission, a broad mission statement. I don't need my boss to tell me what to do. He already did early on, and I'm going to continue unless I hear something different. And guess what? I'm not going to hear anything different because my command and control network has gone away. So you're going to see this type of capability and resilience.
Yeah, on the other side, there are indications that the U.S. has significantly depleted its stockpile of key munitions, including precision strike, THAAD, and Patriot missiles as well. What does this mean not only for this conflict, but potentially future conflicts?
Well, it's conflicts where they might occur. Look, every one of these combatant commanders, European Command, Indo-Pac Command, Southern Command, all of them rely on the same stockpiles that are being used right now very liberally, have been used very liberally and effectively against Iran, the Central Command. So all of those combatant commanders go forward on a routine basis, daily, minute by minute. They evaluate their ability to execute their tasks, and it's all about their readiness posture. And a part of that readiness posture is access to the stockpiles that all of them rely on simultaneously. So we have always understood, irrespective of Epic Fury, that those stockpiles must be routinely replenished. And through the normal operations that we've conducted over the past 20 years, those overseas contingency operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, we have dwindled those stockpiles, but we continue to build them up. And what we've seen now with Epic Fury is clearly, I would state with some level of confidence, that they've been depleted. I could not quantify what that looks like, nor would I add an adjective to it. All I'd say is it's been depleted. There has to be a legitimate effort across the board to make sure that we reach that level, that minimum essential level to operate along those tasks. So it's not surprising at all that we're probably at a level that bears some significant consideration of making this a priority moving forward.
Yeah, Major General James Spider Marks, thanks so much for joining us.
Some perspective now. Joining us is CNN national security analyst Alex Plitsas. So what do you make of the administration's claims, obliterated, degraded everything, military gone, missiles mostly depleted? If Iran retains the ability to resume full-scale military strikes, I mean, do you think we've knocked out their facilities as much as the administration is saying?
It sounds like some of it actually may have been recovered as well. So some of the entrances to the tunnels to underground facilities and caves or things of that nature had been struck. The Iranians have been able to dig some of that and get access to things that were buried. And even with the missiles, it's a question of how many launchers they have left, right? So if they've got 6,000 to 8,000 missiles, but they've only got a couple hundred launchers, that's a strategic choke point. But it's clear the Iranians have been able to recover since then. And also, I mean, when speaking to Central Command and asking about battle damage assessments, even in the beginning they said, look, it's very difficult for us to get there. It's going to take a little time for us to figure this out. So I think there's been a little clarity after action there. I think the Iranians have recovered some, but it is quite clear that they retain substantive military capabilities at this point.
So would Central Command have anticipated this? I mean, that the Iranians could dig out so relatively quickly?
Well, I mean, the fact that the campaign stopped when it did was also a political decision, right? So I don't think that they anticipated, that potentially, I mean, obviously as reality it could have happened, but in terms of the timing, when it happened, what would be left, how long that would last, would the Iranians have the ability to dig out? Those are all factors that wouldn't have been really weighed into military planning, but they're a reality of the battlefield at the moment.
Do you think President Trump is going to ask China for help regarding the Strait of Hormuz? I mean, actually sort of having them be the power broker over the strait, because that would be, in some ways, a great victory for China.
It would be, and so the Chinese have been, largely hands off the Middle East for a long time, but they've gotten more involved in recent years. They had a pretty big diplomatic coup not that long ago in which they were able to broach the rapprochement between the Iranians and the Saudis before the conflict kicked off, and there was a desire to potentially get involved in the negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians, particularly over Gaza, but they were kind of pushed out. But to your point, that would kind of give them some power in this case, and the president didn't want that to be the primary part of the agenda. He's bringing 30 top CEOs within the country. He wanted this to be trade-focused. It pretty much would hand this over to Xi Jinping to help solve, which would empower the Chinese, and especially in the region. So it puts him in a catch-22.
When you talk to people behind the scenes, how much does what they assess things, does it align with what the administration is saying publicly?
You mean about the state of the military?
Yeah.
Well, It's more along the lines of what we're now hearing that's sort of coming out publicly when I'm speaking to folks. They are recovering some of their military capabilities they had, trying to get more accurate assessments as to where they stand. It's clear that the initial assessments for how many missile launchers were left, missiles could have been off, and then again between that and the recovery, the percentages are actually, it seems, higher than what the administration had been quoting.